no matter what. There is a 100% chance that name server will be there. So name server is basically, for example, Google.com is of Google, right? They have hosted it on their own server. So that is like the final case where it will be there. So ideally, when I deploy YouTube as an application or when I hosted YouTube as an application, it will be there with Google, right? YouTube is a Google's, it's a company of Google, right? So it will be in their own servers for sure. If it is then from that server, it basically goes to the top level domain. From that, it goes to ISP. From that, it goes to OS. From that, it goes to browser. That is how basically the storage happens. So each server, it always goes back to your main server, and your main server will have a record for sure. Like there is no, like it is impossible that your main server does not have a commit. So what actually happens if it will go to the main server, and then the main server will be like, okay, I know what is youtube.com, and we understand these words. We understand something called as youtube.com. Computers do not understand. Computers have an understanding of something called as IP address. It might do something like this, it might do something like this, right? So there are, what your browser looks for is this IP address. So until and unless it finds this IP address, it will keep going to one and it will keep going to each and every particular field, and it will go and check whether that IP address exists. If it does not, it will tell you that fine, okay? It will keep going into the next step. But once you have fetched, let's say there was this case, name server only, right? Name server only, name server means you go, like you get this keep on your youtube.com access. But from next time, whenever you basically search for youtube.com, it will not have to go to name server because your operating system, your browser, and your internet service provider already has it in their cache or already stored this spectrum. That every single time in youtube.com also, I just can go to my browser and set it into YouTube. So I don't know if you have noticed that when you open a website for the first time, a new website, it takes you around 2 to 3 seconds to load. Sometimes. But from the next time, it goes under a second. Right? If you have not experienced it, device scan now. So basically, if you open a new website, if you hit enter, it takes around like 3 seconds or 2 seconds. Or maybe because of your internet, it might even be like under 1 second. You may not see it with your naked eye, but the first time if there is a domain which is not with you, it will basically take about a second or 2 to load. But from the next time when you visit the same URL, it will load within a second, like 10 milliseconds if your network is good. So, for example, can someone go and type this website called as Wingspace.com? Just type it for the first time, search for it, type it for the second time and search for it again. You may not see it immediately, but you will see a bit of change. Even if you don't see like a change in load times, don't worry, because this website is anyway name server of the FTL. You can just go to your ISP provider or operating system at times. Check that. We think that when we hit a URL again, for us it's like a second or 2 second wait period. But behind the scenes, these are like 7 or 8 steps which happens behind the scenes. So these are the ones which takes place when you search for the URL. Right? One more thing. There is one very important concept which you guys have to remember. This part is TTL, that is time to live. TTL is called as time to live. What exactly is time to live? It says that, so every website gets stored in the cache, right? We store it in the cache, we store it in browser OS, whatever cache it is. But when I say cache is basically a copy of that website for faster access. When I say copy of that website, let's say I built a website, not a about this page article, this home page article, contact this page article, right? And then even the cache this page data and save in the system. So that what happens with cache is when you load it, it loads much faster basically. So it doesn't have to look somewhere else. It knows that other place, so it just gives you without even thinking. That is what cache basically is about. But let's say about this page address and services page would add this to that website. The cache will not have that most of the time because caching only stores the previous version. If you have updated your website, that version does not get stored with caching. But if you go and look at the website, once it is updated, you guys will see those changes. Why do you see that? It is because of time to live. So every website, when you set up a configuration, has something called as time to live. When I say time to live, it basically talks about if the URL or if a domain is in a cache somewhere, the value of time to live, it could be like 3 minutes, 1 minute, 1 hour, 5 minutes. Generally it is 5 minutes for almost all the websites. After 5 minutes, it will automatically refresh. So the cache will automatically refresh that website from the next cache. So when you are getting the same, cache will go to OS, will go to ISP, will go to name server again, and then will fetch the latest website. So every 5 minutes, this process keeps happening behind the scenes. You don't know it, you may not understand it, but that is what happens. So time to live is basically that. For example, if the time to live is 5 minutes and I have stored a website in a cache, it means that after 5 minutes, cache has to revalidate it. Revalidate until refresh it. Revalidate is just like a term that we use in computer science, but it just basically refreshes again. It just asks a new updated website. That is what cache revalidation does. So time to live is a very important topic. So I'll just show you why domain we have posted, and then I'll show you the records of those domains and stuff. And before that, I also want to take you guys through a website which is called as DNS checker. So DNS and what is DNS? Domain name system. Domain name, right? So DNS is basically like the address of your website. That is like the final address of your website. So address is basically computer synchronization and IP manager basically. So we'll understand where that DNS is and what is the IP address of that DNS. I want every one of you guys to open this website called as dnschecker.org. It's not necessary that I have to go and look at the server which is in the US. I know that I have a server in Mumbai. I can just go and look at that. So basically, when URL looks for all these things, it doesn't go to the US server or anything. It just goes to your Mumbai region server and it will tell you that okay, we have this record here. Right? So this is called as regional domain mapping or regional domain configuration. So what it does is, imagine the world has about 7 billion people, right? India has about 1.5 billion people. So what is 1.5 billion people? The website URL search is, but let's say there are 4 countries: Singapore, India, China, and Bangladesh. Right? So these 4 countries are accessing. Everyone in that four country is accessing the URL, which is youtube.com. Right? If there were no domain name servers here, if it was only one here in the US, don't you think the server will be overwhelmed with the requests? For example, if you go to a museum center, you can only, or if you go to a passport office, they can only take like 10 or 10 across. Or for example, when you give a Viva, you only give it for like 3 or 4 people, right? Google learning का कोई केवल नहीं होगा. The first one comes in, the next one comes in, and then the next one comes in, right? So similarly, what would happen if OpenDay side under Viva was hosted? Would the teacher be able to do it? He or she will be overwhelmed by it, right? So similarly, server will uncheck. Computer will be overwhelmed. For example, let's say some of your laptops are not gaming laptops, right? In another GPS is unnecessary attack. You won't, because your laptop cannot support it, right? So the same thing happens with our website as well. If people from India, Singapore, Bangladesh, or all the other countries are accessing a website, and if it goes back to the same one server which is in the world, that server will basically melt down. It will crash within seconds, right? So Andukani, what we basically do is we have created DNS zones all across the world, right? So for India, if you ever, any Indian wants to basically search for something, and if that URL is hosted in the Mumbai region, you'll just go to that domain region and get it. That's it. Most of your Google, any of the websites which are, or any of the IP addresses or DNS which are hosted, how many of you guys know Amazon Web Services account? AWS. Google Cloud Platform, GCP. Like Amazon has AWS, Google also has GCP. Okay? So if you host any of your websites or applications on GCP or AWS, and they will basically have these regions for you. So you have to be very mindful about choosing a region. So how many of you guys use Netflix today? All of you guys use, right? Netflix has around 40 name servers all around the world. So India doesn't have to look at the server which is in US. They can only look at the server which is in, like, let's say in Singapore or in Japan, which is the closest to India. So on the here, if you look at, I don't know if you've noticed it, but the content that you have in India may not be available in the US, but the content which you have available in the US and India will not. Like most of the time, when you series or the movies are not available in Indian Netflix, but VPN out there is coming, right? Why do we call it as a VPN? Because of private network. VPN out there is saying all of you guys know what a VPN is, right? So guys have used some of the other network. So what happens when you use a VPN? It basically mocks your IP address not from India. Being external IP address are used. So for example, if I want to watch a series from Prime Video, which is not available in my country, which is in India, then I VPN apply this and I can watch all the movies which are available in the US. Right? I can put my location as US, and all those, will be unlocked. So all of these things are done by DNS now. So this is the reason why networking is a very important aspect of computer science and very important for backend engineering as well. Like you might be thinking, you are not people will not ask you all these things. But believe me, people will ask you all these things. Like out of the 7 interviews that I've given before I started this company, each interviewer, some or the other way, asked me about networking or DNS or any sort of solution. So like people who are other, but when you start reading about concepts, you have like design history. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there is this word which everyone uses, like all the YouTubers or all the people use. System design, I don't know. Have you heard about it? Right? System design, again the concept. DSL, is a data structures and management. If you want to get a job, do DSA, do system design. That is all they tell you. Right? But these things are equally important. So it happened to me twice when they asked me to explain everything. I have not even gone that. For every layer, there